I'm here with Jeff Blevins at Jeff Blevins PhD on Twitter. He is the director of the journalism department at the University of Cincinnati, and you do a lot of studying of the social media, or at least it's a topic of interest to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've also taught a class called Social Media and Journalism, and it has become so intimately wound with what we do in journalism these days, and not as a separate animal, but as something that that all journalists have to be involved with these days.
When did you teach that?
I taught that, oh goodness, it was last fall, so it was last year.
Oh, I missed it. Nobody told me about it. It sounds like a cool class. So the big thing that you talked about this morning on the show was the internet outrage machine about the gorilla incident in Cincinnati, Harambe,
Right.
and the alligator attack around Disney.
Right.
And, plot twist, the internet is an outrage machine. People get a little agitated on the Twitter sphere. So
Right.
what do we think about that? What's going on there?
I think it's the medium happens to be very conducive, to that, because it's so instantaneous. It's so quick and easy to post and to share something. It's very easy to put together memes and kind of powerful images. And I think a lot of times, too, we may see something that we don't necessarily vet in our minds, we don't necessarily agree with, but we think it's funny or humorous or captures our attention, and we quickly share it. We don't necessarily think about the kind of echo chamber effect that that it might have, or that we are perhaps perpetuating something that's not accurate.
Do you think people are right? Is this like a mob justice mechanism? Like, are they correct to go after the mother? Do you think it just goes too far sometimes, or are people just not getting the facts? Where do you think that's at?
Well, one of the great things about the internet in general, and particularly social media, is it allows us all of us to not only be mass receivers of information and speech and all of that, but we can also be mass producers of it. It's easy for us to roar at the world now, and we haven't had that power for a long time. Yeah. And so there is if you're a social justice warrior, or you're just someone who wants to be more involved, this is a cheap, easily accessible tool.
Like, do you think that's just like virtue signaling? Like, I need to show the world I'm a good person, so I'm gonna be on the right stance, or whatever they think the right stance is.
Right.
Like, no one goes in there thinking they're wrong, regardless of the
Exactly.
stance.
Exactly.
Everyone
We all
thinks
think
they're right. Yeah, I'm right all the time. I've never been wrong about anything I've said on the internet. I actually had a quote from the Washington Post that I thought kind of nailed it. You tell me what you think of it. They said, "It's easy to partake in, and especially satisfying when everyone feels they're on the right side of it, being any issue.
Right.
But there's no mechanism for when it fails, or when it's arbitrary, or when it takes the form of Gamergate or Cecil the Lion." So you can take those issues, Cecil the Lion or something, and then people are throwing bricks through the guy's dentist's office.
Right.
They could be on the right side of it, but what do you think takes it to that level where people, what needs that situation? Like, Harambe was perfect. Everybody had an opinion about it. Everyone was outraged about it. But there's things that happen every day in every state and city where people just don't care.
Right, and I think those are great points. And I think this is also something that's kind of particular to the medium. I think we're all a lot more brave we're braver in electronic form than we are person to person. Yeah. And I think it's easy to forget the humanity of the other person, in which those electronic jabs, whether it's a tweet, a post, or a meme, is jabbed at. Whether if you were sitting, as close as you and I are, face to face, you're going to be, I think naturally a little more restrained. There's going to be, there's more give and take, and where we can, justify our positions a little more, provide further evidence, come back and forth. Whereas on social media, it's a little easier just to kind of shout and push and get the you want to get the best jab in.
It's hard to have nuance in 140 characters.
That's true. Yes.
And do you think it's more like some of these animals are named? So there was that Cecil the Lion. They had the brother, or the alleged brother, that was killed, and they found out no, it's just some random lion. People stopped caring.
Right.
Or do you think the alligator would have been any different if it was like a named alligator or anything?
Probably not, and that's just my own armchair speculation because
no one would have been like if the alligator's name was Sarah, I'd be like, oh, you went in Sarah's water, your parents and
right, but that's a great point.
Yeah.
In that here we had a primate. Primates tend to be a little more easy to love and wrap your arms around.
Harambe. He has a name, he has a story, he's
right.
in the neighborhood.
Right, that's right. He has this whole history that comes with him where this nameless reptile.
Yeah.
And reptiles, alligators tend to not be as lovable as primates. But it is interesting, there was a lot of outrage over, the shooting of Harambe, and yet there were, at least 5 or 6 alligators that were, captured and euthanized in, this case where we all knew that the child was, sadly, tragically dead at that point.
Like, if Harambe was just a random gorilla in the jungle, and his parents were on a safari, and then the exact same thing happened where they killed a girl, do you think anybody would care?
No.
No?
No.
Do you think it's, we're going to get a little deeper, do you think it's a slightly a race thing?
I do, but in a way that, that is, it's very hard to quantify, but it's easy to spot. I mean,
because I know it's easy for the internet to turn anything into a race issue,
right.
but is this one of those issues? Like, I saw some outlets talk about the kid's father who wasn't even there, and then goes into where's the father issue, and
right,
like
and bringing up his criminal record. It says if that has anything to do with with this situation. But if you look at some of the posts, some of the comments, some of the tweets, I mean, they were explicitly racist.
Yeah.
In this case, I mean, I'm not going to dare repeat some of the things that that I read, but they also played some of the worst stereotypes that the mother was happy that this happened. She was going to try to cash in on this, and you didn't see the.
And was there any evidence of that? Of her trying to cash in on
No,
this?
at least none that I've seen. I haven't heard that she's issued a lawsuit against the Cincinnati Zoo, but I did hear a report that she has no intention of suing the zoo, and the zoo is the same way. The two parties that were directly involved seem to have reconciled this rather easily.
Yeah.
This was sad, but it was a freak accident, and these things happen sometimes.
Do you think the zoo couldn't have made that decision easily, right? Like that is like their pet. They knew that person. And do you think a lot of this is the issue with the mother was, at least what I saw people had a problem with, like she showed no remorse for the girl and she had that initial Facebook post where she's like, thank God my child's still alive. And do you think a lot of this is it's that, and it's like the Stanford swimmer's dad or something, like they say something or they forget to bring up something or remorse for the victim, they're thinking of themselves, but they're also not politicians. They're not groomed to get on they're just random people, and a podium gets thrown in front of them.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. This is she's not a polished PR a person, and she did express some remorse, regret for Harambe a little bit later. But I'm telling you, as just personally as a parent, that's not going to be my first instinct either. My first instinct is going to be, thank God my child is alive, and I don't think any parent would feel differently or would react differently to that. And I think this is where kind of there's that racial empathy gap, that we expected a lot more, and we don't think it was like, well, wait a minute, that's exactly how I would have reacted in the same way. And I think it also plays in just how quickly people were to place blame. That the assumption was that her child was running roughshod all over the zoo. That was not the case. And anyone who has young kids, I'm telling you, they'll get away from you in an instant.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, my mother would look away from me, and I'd be in like the clothes rack. I never got in a gorilla cage, but I would always be in the clothes rack or knocking candy off the shelves or something like that when I was 4 years old or something. Do you think it's an anonymity thing on the internet? Because I'm not 100%. Some people think that, but like Facebook, they know who you are and you got a picture. But Twitter is a little bit more anonymous. Do you think that's an issue at all?
I do, and I think it kind of plays into that bravery thing as well. In some cases we are easily identified, but it's also possible to have anonymity, even on Facebook as well as
or at
as
least
Twitter.
not in the person's face.
Right.
Would you say these, like, anybody go to a random comment section, like, do you think that person would say that to that person's face? Generally speaking,
I doubt that.
Yeah.
I think we all tend to be a little more brave in electronic form. It's one of the.
You said you had a troll.
Yes,
Yeah, you have a troll right now.
Yeah, I do, and and I made the mistake of feeding that.
Don't feed the trolls.
Feed that
yeah,
troll.
don't feed the troll.
And so I've stopped.
Yeah.
Stopped doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's a nice guy.
You know what? There was a part of me that's just like, we should really sit down and have a beer and talk about this.
Yeah.
Because I think we have a lot more in common than where we disagree. But that when you're on that stage, it seems to be that the game is more about scoring points than it is necessarily to really parse something. And as you pointed out earlier, that's very difficult to do in 140 characters or less.
Definitely. Anything else you want to add?
No, this was a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on our low production value interview. My name is Steve Bain. I'm at Steve Bain on Twitter. Dr. Jeff Blevins from the University of Cincinnati, at Jeff Blevins.